A phrase that I use a lot in my videos and I teach to my students is simple chess. Now, what does that mean? Well, simple chess essentially is just playing the most easy and natural looking moves and just sticking to the basics. That is, in the opening, developing, castling, attacking the center, and just putting your pieces on the best squares. The reason this works is because your opponent will eventually make a mistake, especially at low elos, but at all elos, even Magnus Carlsen makes a mistake sometimes. Now, the way you capitalize on these mistakes that your opponents make are by calculating. You need to, in every position, calculate three main things. You need to calculate the captures, you need to calculate the checks, and you need to calculate the threats for both sides. But first, you need to calculate yours, and then you need to calculate how your opponent responds from that. In this video, I'll just play a simple game against the Stockfish computer level like 1 or 2, I can't remember, and I'll just talk you through my thought process. I think it could be very instructive for you guys to see just how a very simple method of playing chess can be very, very powerful on capitalizing on your opponent's mistakes. This is the main thing at low elos that I see, that people don't capitalize on their opponent's mistakes and they just play too rash. They play too risky and it just doesn't work and they miss something. So yeah, let's get into it. So here we are. I've got the level 2 Stockfish computer on Lichess booted up, and I'm just going to play a simple game. I'll talk you through my thought process and just let you know how I personally calculate and how I think you guys should calculate as well. So let's just play a simple opening. Let's bring the knight out and just play maybe a King's Indian. The opening stage doesn't really matter, especially at fairly low elos for beginners. The main thing is that you just get castled and you get these pieces into the game. That is the main thing that you should be focusing on as a beginner. Now, from here, we're just going to be moving these pieces in the middle. Our opponent's not really playing much like aggressive chess, so we don't really need to think about their moves too much. We just need to think about our own moves, and this seems like a good square for the bishop. There's not too much calculation that goes on in the opening stage. Normally that's in around the middle game. And already we're just gonna, just play simple moves with our pieces, just get all of our pieces out. And already we have a move here, which our opponent is making a threat. The moment we see a move like this, we need to think, what is our opponent trying to do with that move? They are obviously trying to attack our bishop. Now we have a few things we can do with our bishop. We could, drop back to any of these squares. That would be fine. We could come and take this. If we come here, however, our opponent, if we move this bishop here, how does that change the position? Well, in that position, this square is free, and our bishop wouldn't actually have any squares. We wouldn't be able to move here or here, and so our opponent could, in that position, actually play g5, and that would trap our bishop. So that wouldn't be a very good move coming back here. And so I'm just going to trade the bishop for the knight. It's a 3-for-3 trade. That's a fine trade. That's a very strange move from the computer. Coming here, just taking it would have been a very normal move, developing another piece. Here, however, this does not do that, and we are now just a knight up. Now, of course, we wouldn't be a knight up if our opponent would just take that, and so we need to just move this piece away. Now, again, we can't move here because our opponent can come here and trap that piece. And so the only other square that we have is this move here. And so that's where we'll play. Often in chess, the most simple move is the one you should play. And here already our opponent is playing a tactic where if we come back here, then they've got this move, which would actually fork both of those pieces. Now, instead of coming back here, what other moves do we have? Well, we should think. We just came from here. We know that we can't really go there. Can we take? No, because our opponent is covering that. But we do have this move, which is actually protected by our knight. Now, our opponent moves their queen again. I wouldn't recommend this move as well because A, they've already moved their queen. This square, coming on this diagonal, that seems fine. But also, and maybe more importantly, they're blocking in their own pieces. They want to be developing these pieces. Likewise, we want to be developing our pieces, and so we're just going to move our queen. A very simple move. like I said, in the early stages of the game, you just want to be moving your pieces out. Our opponent does that. Our opponent moves this knight out. He again took away this square for his knight, so he had to choose between these two. That square's fine. That square's probably a bit better, but that's no biggie. Now, we have connected our rooks. That is a big landmark in the opening. That is something you should always be trying to do. Now, what can we do? Well, after doing something like that, we should be looking for breaks in the center, or we should be looking at tactics. Now, tactics usually come about through captures or checks or something like that. So let's have a look at our captures. We could take here, but our opponent could just take back with the queen, and really that would just open up the bishop. We don't really want to be moving this queen for our opponent, which is what would happen if we take. And so I don't really see that as a great move. We do have this move afterwards, but our opponent can just come here, covering all the squares, hitting our knight, and it doesn't seem like we've really achieved anything. Instead, maybe what we could do is try and break in the center. That's a very common plan that you should have in chess. When you move your pawns, that creates imbalance in the position, that changes the structure. Pawns are, even though they're only worth 1 point, they determine the structure, as they can just become a wall that other pieces can't go through. Or they can open up lines as well for the rooks, maybe. Now, if we break here, our opponent can take, we take back, take, and here. So already we can break in the center. So that's what we'll do. Our opponent takes, and as we calculated, we can take here. And already this is, again, a slight tactic. Our opponent takes here, which wins back the piece. As you can see, they've got the bishop. But it also opens up this queen. If we take this queen back, if we take this bishop back, sorry, that undefends this queen. And so if we take here, then our opponent can simply take our queen, and we would lose our queen. So that means that we need to do something about that, and taking this queen means that our opponent is forced to take the queen back because they don't want to be losing a queen, and that frees up our knight to take back this bishop, and again we're that piece up that we were before. We were also attacking this piece, so our opponent moves that rook back, and now again we've reached another position. Maybe there are a few key critical ideas here. The first one we should look at, as I said, we should always look for checks. We have no checks in this position, but we do have some captures. We can take this bishop with our knight, and here in that position our opponent would obviously just recapture the bishop, and really again we've just helped them developing their own pieces. We don't really want to be doing that. This bishop isn't doing too much, and this knight for us is a very, very nice piece in the center of the board, attacking lots and lots of squares. That is a very good knight. This bishop is not very good. It's what we call just a big pawn. All of these squares are covered by our pieces, and it's not doing very, very well. Now, what other moves do we have? Well, this move here, this actually opens up our own bishop. If we take, our opponent is likely to take back. And again, we could maybe come here and capture this pawn. Maybe in that position, our opponent will come here because we're attacking the rook. And in that position, again, we can take this knight. So I think this is a very good move, and we'll do it. We'll play it. Our opponent, maybe seeing this move, doesn't want to get involved in that, so they move their knight so that when we take here, we're not attacking both of them. Now, what else do we have here? Well, again, this bishop is being attacked by our piece, but we said we don't want to capture it now because our opponent can just take it. Well, what if in this position we came rook here and attacked this bishop again? How would our opponent defend it? Well, they can't actually defend that bishop again. They would have to move it, and well, they can move it here, and that's the only square they can really move it to. So if they move it here, we can capture, and after this capture, we have bishop captures as well. So this looks like a very, very nice move as well. And after this, again, look for captures in the position. I think here we can just simply capture this, and after take back, again, we can take this, the pawn back. Again, our opponent being a level 2 computer, is giving us a lot of opportunity here and isn't taking back, giving us another piece. So what should we do in this position? Well, again, look at our opponent's threats. This is being threatened. This is also being threatened, but a knight is obviously worth more than a pawn, so we would want to save the pawn. We would want to save the knight. Excuse me. How do we do that? Well, simply just move it. There are a few squares we can move to. We've got this. Well, we don't want to move here. We don't really want to move here because both can be captured. We can move here. We don't want to move here because that can be captured. Or we could just move back or here. I think this is the best because it attacks, again, 2 pawns. It creates some threats on the board. And again, our opponent moves. This, again, opens up the rooks. We could capture this rook, but our opponent could just move their rook into the position. And that would simply just develop their rook and undevelop this rook. What else do we have? Well, we could take this pawn. That looks like a very strong move. We'll do that. We could have maybe taken with the knight as well. Both moves seem very fine. But again, that seemed, getting the pawn onto the 6th rank and advancing it even further seemed like a very good idea. Now, again, our opponent was threatening this, but I did calculate that after coming here, if they come here, we actually have this check. Again, look for checks. And after, well, they're forced to take, because if not, I'll just take their rook. And after they take and we come here, we queen, our pawn reaches the end of the board, and we get a queen on the board. Who doesn't want that? And so our opponent comes here to block this pawn. But again, we can just come here, we attack this rook. Our opponent, okay, if our opponent takes, then we take back, making a queen. But now our opponent is attacking our knight. We could just take their rook. But I'm just going to be a little bit fancy. Let's just come here and make sure that they don't have any chances at all to take our pieces. And now we can just take this rook. That rook is off the board. Now we're threatening taking this bishop. Our opponent can't actually do anything. Our opponent can't come to any of these squares because these knights do a very nice job. And we just simply take that rook. Now the piece moves. And there are a few ways to finish off this game, I believe. I think the simplest, again, is probably just to make a queen and then give a checkmate. Here, I mean, there are lots and lots of different checkmates, but that's probably the simplest. So, yeah, again, Stockfish level 2. Let's have a quick look at the game, just to see, if there were any improvements that could have been made, or if I missed anything. Again, just, the opening stage, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, just playing very simple developing moves. The most important thing in the opening is just get your kings safe and get your pieces in the center of the board on good squares. And that's what we're doing here, just putting our pieces on very, good squares. Now, again, just putting our knight in the middle of the board. Maybe we're not playing 100% the top engine moves, but that's not the point. At low elos, that's not what you need to be doing. You just need to be focusing on the basics and then leveling up from there. If you don't get the basics and you're trying to focus on playing the top engine move every single time, you're never going to do that. Not even Magnus Carlsen does that. Here, again, the 2 moves are here. To be honest, I didn't originally calculate coming here. I just saw coming here, which did, of course, run into to this move from our opponent. Oh my god, I want to yawn. Oh my god. Bless me. But, yeah, after a few simple moves, you can already see that we're already +5. Just as long as you're aware of your opponent's moves and playing simple developing chess, you're making sure your rooks are like this. And also back here that you're just aware that your opponent has just given up a piece. Just simple stuff like this. Your opponent will make mistakes. You just need to play solidly, and once your opponent makes a mistake, capitalize on it. That's the aim with chess. That's what we should be trying to do. Yep. So the game continues, and you see, I'm not really dropping much points here. Like I'm staying above 4 points. This is all very fine. Again, I have to take, because if I take here and I get tunnel vision on that, immediately the evaluation changes and our opponent can just take our queen. So even in winning positions, you need to be very careful. Even in better positions, I should say, you should be careful, because there are always tricks, and the fact that there are tricks for us to miss means that there are also tricks for our opponent to miss, and we need to just always be vigilant for when they miss those tricks. And again, just the simple moves, bringing the pieces into the game, it's always going to be a good idea to do that. And so that's what we do. We bring the pieces in, and I think here it's just a matter of just pushing the pawn and just making some more threats, which is what we do. Yeah, so a very nice end to the game here. Just making a queen and checkmate. Nothing too out of the ordinary. I think most of my moves here were very, very simple, very, very self-explanatory. A lot of beginners can make these moves. It's just often beginners get sidetracked by, maybe in positions like these. I say they'll move back, and already here it's got a negative evaluation after something like this, and it just wants you to give up your pieces already, which is not good. Or maybe even after something like this, a beginner might start moving their pieces about and start playing something like this. You need to stick to the opening principles and, start calculating how to stick to the plan. The plan, as we know in the opening, get your pieces out and just play simple chess. Get your pieces out, play simple chess like I did, and you'll win games like I just did. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope this kind of analysis was helpful for you. You could follow along and see really how just simple chess is the best way to calculate in chess, really. Just often the most simple move is the answer. You don't need anything too complicated. You just need to capitalize on your opponent's mistakes, and that's basically it. That will get you to 1,000,000 elo, to 4,000 elo or something, I don't know. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you found this video entertaining or educational or something. I hope it filled some kind of void that was left there. Yeah, thank you for watching, everyone, and goodbye. Mwah!